Blessings, beloveds. Welcome back, Anastasia, Cosmic Astrologer. Let's talk about the new moon in Aries, a very, very beautiful, exciting, powerful energy for many, many reasons. New moon in the first sign of the zodiac, Aries, new beginnings, very active, dynamic energy. It's a cardinal sign, a fire sign. It represents initiation, it represents your own self identity, really. Before I start unpacking it and bring up the chart, I just want to dedicate this session to my father. It's his birthday today, and he would have been 79 years of age. It's a quite an emotional day for me, so bear with me if my mind kind of flows in and out of whatever it does. So anyway, it is what it is, but I just want to really dedicate this to him. So it's quite beautiful, actually, that it's his solar return today, and the new moon in Aries is just a couple of days away. So, okay, recently I did a webinar with Jason Holly, a great astrologer who, in my opinion, is probably one of the greatest modern sort of people, if you like, in the community of astrology from the point of view of understanding mythology and explaining mythology and the work that he does with his clients, with his work around the myths, the archetypes, and so forth. So, anyway, I did the Aries myth just recently, and it was a very powerful reminder of things that some key points of things that I had kind of placed in the back of my mind, as we all do. One thing I will say is, when it comes to studying astrology and learning astrology, practicing astrology, working with it, and so forth, even though you may have been reading books for many, many years, it's always very useful and very powerful to go back to things consistently, and especially even the core sort of basic kind of principle of things that we just tend to sort of forget that we learn very early on, because part of us is we're so enthusiastic and excited about learning more that we have this thirst for knowledge, if you like, or wisdom, and we're kind of racing ahead all the time, trying to you know um, get more information, if you like, and we're sort of forgetting other things that are actually very, very significant. And one of the major, major things is mythology, and mythology is so important and so central to understanding astrology. And most astrologers do not necessarily know that the myths, the myths of all the archetypes and so forth. That's not my personal opinion. That's just how it seems to be. Mythology is quite a specialized field, and it does require a lot of study and research. There are many different types of myths as well. It's not just one myth for one archetype. So it is worth actually really spending some time in reading the mythologies and understanding them for each of the zodiac signs. So, Aries, the claim to one's place and space, that's Aries. So, with this Aries new moon, which has some incredible aspects to it as well, there's a few synchronicities going on. It's the sun in Aries, which is its exalted position. We have the season of spring, which is occurring, for all of you in the northern hemisphere, and of course for us in the southern hemisphere, it's actually autumn, but nevertheless, it's still the 21st of March, in other words, or it was around about the 20th this year when the sun ingressed into Aries. That's the true astrological new year, okay, based on the tropical zodiac. The tropical zodiac is based on these seasons, okay, that we experience all year round. Um, so we have the exaltation of the sun. We have the springtime, which is new birth, new beginnings. We have a new moon in Aries, therefore a whole brand new lunation cycle beginning that really extends to the next 12 months, because it's the ingress of the sun and moon becoming a new moon into the first sign of the zodiac. So then the the next 11 months, we're going to see the moon obviously be a new moon in the subsequent signs, the remaining 11 signs. So it's quite a special cycle from a lot of different angles, from the spring, the springtime, the sun in Aries, the astrological new year. It's a new moon in Aries. It's a beginning of in the bigger picture, a 12-month cycle relative to new moons. We just recently had the Venus star point, which is a part of this picture as well, because the Venus star point only occurred a few weeks ago, and the energy of the Venus star point is still active at present. We can actually see that when we look at the position of Venus at the moment is still very close to the sun. She's still dancing with the sun, as it were. So there's an abundance of Aries energy, which speaks to courage, intuition, instincts, stepping forward. Even though, Aries doesn't know what the outcome is going to be of what it initiates, and it doesn't really care. Its main interest and instinctual push and drive and desire is to do something. It has to do something, and that's something that it engages in or wants to do. It has to be a challenge. um, Aries is totally motivated and inspired and excited when there is risk and challenge involved in the next step it's going to take. It's not a thought out process necessarily. Aries operates more on instinct and intuition. And in esoteric astrology, which this adds another level to the frequency of this new moon, is that currently transiting Mercury is in the sign of Aries. It recently ingressed into Aries. And the esoteric ruler to Aries is Mercury. So we have this abundance of energy, messages, information, wisdom, inspiration coming through to all of us through this archetype of Aries in an absolute abundance of ways. Spring, sun exaltation in Aries, Venus star point in Aries, new moon in Aries. Mercury is the esoteric ruler of Aries. Mercury is in Aries in this new moon chart. So there's a bunch of things that synchronize together, which show the absolute dynamic strength and power of this particular lunation cycle, the birthing, the new birth of this new moon, new cycle. Don't forget, it is a cycle that will unfold essentially over the next 12 months. So the point at the moment, it's not to see the outcome of what you want to see. It's not about having 100% guarantee, which there is no 100% guarantee in anything anyway. But it's not about having the outcome clear to you at the moment. This is about inspiring your courage, okay? The level of courage inside you to step into where angels might fear to go, so to speak, because Aries has that natural capacity and ability to take such extreme risks and to step into areas of life and zones where most people would not. It doesn't have a thought process that filters through and says, no, that's too dangerous, that's too risky, etc., etc. The very nature of danger and risk is what actually excites Aries. Think about them. One of the myths for Aries is Jason, the golden fleece first. Jason and the Argonauts and the journey that Jason went through. And it was quite a journey. He had to go through so many trials and tribulations, so many challenges in order to ultimately get to the golden fleece, which is an animal that was considered to be incredibly sacred. It was the magical ram. It had healing powers, you see. So there's a lot of energy there with the Aries archetype that speaks to, by having the courage to take the risk towards something that you normally would not go towards, there is reward there just by the sheer ability to step into your courage and take the risk of doing whatever it might be that you need to do at this point in time. Um, it's a new beginning is always, it's the same as an ending. We cannot actually separate a beginning and an ending. They are just tied in together, because when something is beginning, it's beginning because something else has ended, and vice versa. So we have this incredible, vibrant, intensified energy of certain things in our life at the moment truly having concluded and come to an end process, right? And we are ready to step into, truly ready to step into an absolute abundance of courage, if we so choose, if we open ourselves up to this energy. And of course, it is about assessing where this new moon energy will be in correspondence to your actual birth chart. So where is Aries in your chart, and more specifically, where is 22 degrees of Aries, because that's the degree of this new moon. In addition to that, it is more typical, for people who have planets in Aries, or Libra, or Capricorn, or Cancer. In other words, when you have planets in Aries, obviously the new moon will be right there conjunct those Aries planets, for instance. If you have planets in Libra, it will be opposite your Libran planets. And if you have planets in Capricorn and Cancer, it will be forming a square to those planets. So it is more typical that the squares, the conjunctions, and the oppositions tend to be more dynamic or activated points that we can really consciously integrate, because they create things. They're dynamic energies, these aspects. They're not lying dormant and waiting to be activated as such. They really do trigger things off in our life and in our chart. So, it is always more typical with a new moon or a full moon, when it is forming any of these aspects to planets in your chart, and or any of the angles in your chart, so the ascendant, the descendant, the IC and the MC, meaning the bottom part of your chart and the top part of your chart. Anything that hits off those angles is always extremely powerful, period. So when you have a new moon on any of those angles, it's really representing a brand new journey beginning that's corresponding to what that angle represents: ascendant self, IC family, home, descendant relationships, MC career, life path, future direction, social role, identity, etc. So it is always important to pay attention to these other components in your chart, and not just reading it as a new moon in Aries and that's it, because it's not it. There's a lot more to it. Let me just bring up the chart and make a few comments about the chart. And this won't be a particularly long video today, as I have to go very soon. But anyway, let's just get going with the chart. So this is based in Melbourne, Australia, and so the new moon occurs on the 12th of April for us here in the Southern Hemisphere, and for you guys in the Northern Hemisphere, it will be on the 11th of April. So I have quite a few points in the chart, as you can all see, and some of you may be wondering what they all are. It doesn't matter what they all are, because I won't be speaking about all of them. But there's a couple of things I really want to address here. And so I'm just going to grab some drawing tools. I'll grab that one. Okay. So, oh, it's not allowed me to do it. Okay. Let me just. There's a Chiron Mercury conjunction. That's super important. There's the new moon in Aries. Mars is forming a sextile to this new moon. That's very important, because Mars is the ruler of this new moon. Mars rules Aries. There is also a mutual reception between Mars and Mercury. Mutual reception means that two planets are in each other's signs, because Mercury rules Gemini, Mars rules Aries. That's called reception. It's an exchange of energy. They are in each other's domicile, if you like, just to use more older traditional language, or they are in each other's um, natural habitat, right? In each other's home place. So they have this exchange together where they are supporting each other. Okay, that's a very important point in this chart as well. And of course, Ceres is there as well. There's Venus, okay, which is fairly close to the new moon as well, very close as a matter of fact. Venus is also forming a square to Pluto. That's another very important point. Jupiter is trine Mars, and Saturn is sextile, let me just say, Mercury. That's right. So yeah, sorry, you guys can't see this, but when I try to remove a few things, it blocks me from continuing to squiggle, and then I have to reactivate things. So what was I saying? Mercury, Jupiter, uh, Saturn, Mercury rather, and then Jupiter to the new moon. Now that looks awfully messy, which I can completely understand, but don't worry, because I'll unpack one thing at a time. In other words, you can see there's a lot going on with this new moon. There's the new moon itself at 22 degrees of Aries. It is conjunct Venus, which recently formed the Venus star point with the sun. So that energy is still very vibrant, very powerful. That is speaking to the next 9 months for all of us relative to the Venus star point and where that Venus star point is in your chart. Ceres is very significant, being conjunct this new moon and in Aries, because Ceres, without going into the mythology again, because I've spoken about Ceres so many times, so I'll just make some key comments. Ceres is a character who's an earth mother, who corresponds to renewal and regeneration, but not before we experience some kind of loss. Okay, so it's a very Pluto type of energy. She's a very Plutonic Pluto type of force, if you like, because just in the same way with Pluto, when we experience the energy of Pluto through transits and so forth, we cannot integrate Pluto until we are actually in a position ready and able to allow something to die. Okay, so Ceres acts in the same way. Now, Ceres conjunct this new moon, because this new moon is so much about our own personal identity, our ability to stand in our space, to feel that we have the right to be present in the space that we stand in, to hold ourselves in that space with confidence and courage and strength and power, to be who we are, certainly who we are becoming, and who we have been becoming, as it were. Okay, because this is a time to recognize and to see that there's a new sense of self being born here. Okay, but we have to be able to release an older version of ourself, and this is what the series in Aries is pointing to. It's saying, get ready to let go of an older version of yourself that you've had an identity with for a very long time, let's say. That, I mean, you can break that down to so many different levels. That can be, a personal transformative journey you've been working on and going through, which can include things like allowing certain friendships to be completed. A certain person might leave your life. You may disconnect from a particular group that you used to connect with and engage with. It may be an addiction that you've had, that you are trying to overcome. And addictions, that covers a lot of things. Addiction can be to food, to people, to places, to sex, to drugs, to a number of different things. We can have addictions to a lot of different things. So, yeah, that depends on what's going on for you. The point is that with Ceres there, she's actually saying to us, you really want to you really want to feel a sense of autonomy and freedom within this new sense of self that's being born, new moon, Aries, Ceres in Aries. But you must allow an older version of yourself to die so that you can be renewed into this passage, this new Aries energy. And so there can be a sense of having to have to let something die and let something go, which is often quite a painful experience. It's never easy. A death or an ending, regardless of the context and the circumstances that involve that death or ending, it's never easy. We as humans in this physical body, we go through death and rebirth consistently, all the time throughout our whole life and throughout our whole evolution, meaning all our lifetimes. And as I've said numerous times, we experience death and rebirth every day because we go to sleep at night, that's a death. We wake up, it's a rebirth. And then we have, of course, really significant intensified journeys that literally feel like a death. So an end of a relationship is a death. An end of working in a particular place, location for a company, whatever, it's a death. It's we just must understand what the term or the word death means in the context of how we are viewing it and trying to understand it here. The death is merely a transformative process, but the psychological and emotional attachment to what is dying off or leaving us, that's the challenging part that we need to overcome, right? It's the detaching that's not easy, and it's not supposed to be easy. We are supposed to experience these very deep processes that require us to go through, facing our deepest fears, to showing true courage where we need to let things go that need to go, to bring detachment and awareness and consciousness in, to release old forms, old ideas, old thoughts, old relationships, old whatever it is. And so this energy is very, very, very vibrant for this type of experience at the moment for us. But we absolutely have to let something go. The other thing that emphasizes this death, rebirth, letting go, transformation is that Pluto is forming a square to Venus. It's an exact square during this time, okay? And Venus is conjunct the Sun. So really, Pluto is also forming a square to this new moon. And so this is not necessarily a comfortable new moon experience. It's really not, because the moon itself in Aries is not necessarily comfortable to begin with. The moon is very insular. It's very subjective, and it seeks to feel safe, nurtured, fed, protected. And Aries is about the complete opposite to that. It's not about safety, it's about danger, it's about risk, it's about courage, it's about stepping into what you fear to step into the most. And I like what Jason said. He said, there was just one particular comment. Let me just find it. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's working with fear alongside it. So having courage doesn't remove fear, in other words. Having courage means that you can work with that fear no matter what it is. And this is the gift of Aries. This is the gift that Aries gives to all of us. Any of your Aries planets have this potential ability, always. Um, The other things that I want to point to as well is, well, let's just look at some other key kind of expressions for Aries, and also the Venus star point in Aries as well. So of course it's the ram, okay, the golden fleece, really originally. It's the quest for personal identity, or the hero's journey. The hero's journey is work that's been produced by Joseph Campbell, particularly, who's done a lot of work around this story and concept of the hero's journey, which is seen through various archetypes such as Leo and Aries very specifically. Um, the hero's journey, though, when you understand the essence and the core of that journey itself, one might think that the hero's journey is about finding the hero outside of themselves, out there, trying to find a hero somewhere out there to give them that sense of courage or inspiration or whatever else it may be. But the hero's journey is all about the hero that lies within. And that's where we're at the moment. We need to be heroic in our own life, in our own actions at the moment, and that's what Aries points to, being able to be heroic in the face of adversity, to show courage in the face of adversity. That's exactly what we're being called to do at the moment. um, Self-awareness, self-discovery, self-direction, um, new beginnings, growth, birth, rebirth, leadership, pioneering, adventure seeking, intuition, and so on and so forth. Intuition is a very important component to Aries. Um, the archetype Aries has incredibly strong intuition. Many people probably don't even know that, but it actually does. And there are various reasons for that. And one is connected to the mythology of the Golden Fleece, who had tremendous magical powers and healing powers. The other component is connected to esoteric astrology, Mercury ruling Aries, which produces very powerful intuition relative to our intellect, our mind, connecting to the mind of God. In fact, in esoteric astrology, Aries are known to be the seers, Seers, the seers of any age. And as a result, what they do is they lead humanity into the light of what's called Buddhic consciousness in esoteric astrology. So not only does Aries have the courage, the strength and the power and the confidence to face their demons, as it were, to face their greatest fears, the greatest challenges where most people fear treading to walk. They naturally go there. They also bring with them an incredible level of intuition and insight, which has no logic to it. It's intuition. Intuition is not logic. And that also, we could say, comes from the fact that the sign before Aries is Pisces, which is an incredibly mystical, intuitive sign of wisdom and so forth, truth, consciousness. So Aries, uh, which is the presentation or representation of birth, being coming into this world. I've used this analogy before and I'll use it again because it's very important at the moment. Being born into this physical 3D reality and dimension, being born into this physical body, the act of the mother giving birth is a dangerous act even until this day, even with all the technological advancements that are in place at the moment, because anything can go wrong during a birth when a mother is about to give birth to a child. That birthing process, that's the Aries experience. That's being born, coming out into the beginning of something, right? And it is dangerous. Why? Because anything can go wrong at any time. And so that's what Aries is about. It's about that danger, basically stepping into that danger no matter what, and having the confidence and the courage to do it. Now, I'm not talking about making silly choices and silly decisions and being mindless. We need to bring some awareness here as well. This is not just about, being completely blindsided and making what one might consider as foolish choices. We do need to bring some wisdom into this as well. Okay, the polarity point is Libra, which shows us that we need to kind of have some balance here as well. But fundamentally, this is an Aries new moon, which is really about just bringing all your courage into your current circumstances, and going head on, as it were, with what you need to tackle, what you need to step into, what you need to act on. Anything that is kind of in the narrative of this for you and in the background, given that we just had a full moon in Libra 2 weeks ago, Libra is about contemplation. It just kind of sits on the fence, and it has tremendous ability to have this sense of illumination and clarity, but it struggles to make a decision either in this direction or in that direction, because the multiple kind of options create a bit of a blockage for Librans sometimes. So during that full moon, we possibly saw something very clearly relative to our own life, and perhaps where there are some imbalances that exist, whether that was in financial situations or relationships, and it probably was for many people. Now, with this new moon in Aries, we are given the gift of the ability to show courage to take action towards what it is that we actually need to do based on any of the imbalances that we recognized a couple of weeks ago. That's just another way of looking at the energy of this new moon as well, right? Okay. The other thing that I really love about this new moon is that Jupiter forms a sextile to it, which is an absolute blessing. It's basically suggesting that at this point in time, the courage that you are able to step into and to show in your life towards the circumstances or situations that require that level of courage will be supported through Jupiter, because Jupiter is forming a sextile. A sextile is a harmonious interaction between two planets where opportunity arises and it produces the right timing for things to unfold as well. And of course, Jupiter is a planet of abundance, gifts and blessings, and growth and expansion. So by being able to show the courage that you need at the moment, you will be supported by one of the greatest gods, which is Jupiter or Zeus, right? So we have that in the mix as well. Now, the Venus squaring Pluto is quite an interesting dynamic, and that really is speaking to a soul level of transformation that's occurring in your own value systems at the moment, and in your own relationships, and in how you're dealing with finances as well. If we want to take it to that material, mundane personality kind of level, it's to do with finances and investments and so forth, right? But at the higher level, relative to our soul's evolution, this is about letting go and releasing older forms and structures that informed the sorts of value systems we believed in. Because now Venus in Aries, she's making a fresh start, really. She's looking at herself and what she really needs moving forward relative to what she values in life. This is an important thing. Aries is not there accidentally. We all need to have a sense of self, a sense of identity, a sense of who we are becoming, right? This is Aries. So there's some energy here that really does speak to letting go of some older kind of values that we had in play relative to perhaps how we grew up thinking with certain things, in terms of what we value, okay, in life in general, really. But at a soul level, it's really speaking to evolving at a pretty intensified rate at the moment, from the point of view of giving us a greater sense of autonomy and freedom in our level of our own self-identity. Okay, autonomy and freedom corresponds to Aries. Self-identity corresponds to Aries as well. Okay, and we need to have that. We need to be able to know who we are. Okay, so that gives us an ability to also connect to more authentic layers within ourselves. Because for the most part, a lot of people identify who they are through relationships, finances, work status, etc., etc. But if that all those things are removed, who are you when you stand there stripped away from all of that, bare naked as it were? Who are you as an individual? Do you know yourself? That's what this energy is giving us the opportunity to really examine, have a look into, and bring forth out of ourselves as well as we progress forward. The other really beautiful thing that I love about this is that Jason in the um, Greek Greco-Roman mythology, Jason and the Argonauts and the Golden Fleece. Jason spent a lot of time with Chiron in his time. Okay, so Chiron, who of course is a mentor and a teacher, taught Jason a lot of things, as Chiron taught many of the gods and characters in that time many skills. Chiron was extraordinarily talented in so many different ways. And Chiron is the one that actually named Jason as well. You know, he gave him his name. Now, I think this is really interesting because Chiron is in Aries at the moment, as we know. It's moving direct at the moment. It's recently been conjunct to Aries. You know, Aries is now Mercury rather. Mercury is progressing forward and moving away from Chiron, but the energy is still there. So that's really got to do with just our own level of intellect and thoughts about ourselves. You know, the thought that we have about ourselves can produce a lot of different things in our life, in the way we experience life and the way we relate to other people. So it is important to have a look at any self-sabotaging thoughts that we may have, you know, about our life and ourselves, and also where we might even reject ourselves in some kind of way based on experiences that we've had. This is the opportunity to examine any of those themes if they are there for you, okay? And tune into the Aries confidence and courage to step into a new version of yourself that's being born right now. And this journey, as I said, is going to unfold really over the next year. So it's really, I mean, the language cannot cannot convey the magic, the beauty, and the power of this particular new moon. Honestly, it cannot. There is so much in this for all the reasons that I've communicated. And just to summarize again, Venus star point in Aries, part of this new moon energy. Sun exalted in Aries, new moon in Aries, Venus in Aries, this is Venus alone. Jupiter forming a really positive relationship to this new moon. Saturn's forming a really positive relationship to Mercury. Chiron is there saying to us, you know what? The inner healer, the inner teacher, the inner wisdom, it's there. Activate it yourself. Aries is self. So we've got to go back in and reconnect, okay, to perhaps lost aspects of ourselves and give birth to new versions of ourselves as well. I mean, in the face of everything that's going on collectively at the moment, we are all having to have to transform our lives in different ways, both in practical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual ways, right? Due to the nature of reality and events, which are still quite uncertain, and there's still a lot of turmoil, and there's still conflict and tension and resistance and deception and just an absolute uh, level of craziness beyond our comprehension. And so the power that we have in all of this is to go back and re-examine ourselves and give birth to new versions of ourselves so that we can continue to evolve, right? So that we can tap into our own level of courage instead of trying to project those things out there, desiring for others to give us that inspiration or that courage or that strength or that power. No, you have it inside you. Just go within, locate it. That's what this is. It's giving you the opportunity to do that. It's giving birth to this process. it's a alchemical type of experience as well. So that's what I have to say about the new moon. And I will leave it there because I need to move forward with certain things. I'm just seeing if there was something else I needed to say. I don't believe there is. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. I'll see you guys very, very soon with another astrology video and with classes. Yes, they are still coming. It's my father's birthday today. It's my birthday next week. It's my Greek Easter coming up in a couple of weeks' time. This month is really quite overwhelming for me in a number of different ways personally. And so it was even quite challenging coming on doing this video today, but I wanted to do it because the main thing I wanted to do was dedicate this to my dad, Achilles. So, yeah. And I appreciate all of you tuning in and listening and, subscribing, liking, sharing your comments and thoughts and reflections. And so I'm sending you all a lot of love, a lot of blessings. And just, I really want you all to your greatest capability to understand that this vibration has true magic within it. And there's so much that you can gain by tuning into this because it's not a one day thing. We're looking at the next 12 months. It's very, very powerful. So yeah, see you all soon. Thanks for watching.